Hey everyone, so thank you for joining us this morning. I know it is kind of an early Saturday morning to get you guys up and talk about some company development stuff, but I'm super glad to have you guys, and I'm glad that we could have a couple moments of your time to kind of start going through this. We are actually getting this recorded, and we're going to start segmenting this out so that we can get it to all the other companies. What I really want you guys to know up front is that this is a time for us to kind of show what we're talking about, but it's also a good moment for you guys to actually start asking questions and have a discussion that sometimes there are things that we have talked about with some companies, but have forgotten to make sure it gets out to everybody else. So please do take your time and ask the questions. We're going to put in some very systematic breaks in where we're going to say, you know, this is open for discussion, or we're taking questions, and you can always, you know, add in questions during your group chat. But we're going to have just these almost long pauses to make sure that we continue to give you the opportunity to ask questions. So don't think that just because we're in this video conference that we shouldn't ask questions. So please do take advantage of it. We're happy to be here, and we're happy to answer any questions you guys have. So first things first, if we can go through the agenda. Do you mind switching?
General Dollar, I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah, welcome, General Dollar. So the things that we want to talk to you guys about is first just reemphasize the overview of the society, kind of refreshing some concepts of how the society is organized, and then also start getting into the nitty-gritty of a cadet command structure, how to get involved, also how to grow your membership, and then also some development ideas, and then strategic direction of the entire society of what we see it coming to light in, you know, not only next year but also in the next 3 years. And then also something that we think is just so key for all of you guys to really start embracing now is the transitioning your leadership of right from the very beginning and every year is understanding, okay, well, who's going to have the stick of that corporate knowledge or the company knowledge that's going to be able to carry the stick the next year, and keep pushing the society forward on your side. And then we'll also talk through some administration, which is pretty key. Right now we're still trying to figure out the right balance for companies as we try to scale, and we need more information from you guys of trying to balance your time along with our time. So Megan's going to hit that, and I think will be really helpful. So first things first is let's go over the program concepts. Some of the big things. So we were founded in 1905, University of Wisconsin. We all know these things. But the thing that I really wanted to reemphasize is how, you know, when the 5 cadet officers actually came to it, but it's so important to really understand that they were looking for good and efficient officers. And it's so funny how, even though it's been over 110 years, we're still talking about the same type of conversations of how do we, you know, push the military forward and develop the officers that we want to be led by ourselves and by others. And it's such a long-lasting concept that I think will be with us for generations to come, especially just talking about leadership and professionalism and all the main concepts of society. Is they never die. There's always room for improvement, and we come to different methodologies of how we approach different concepts, which I think is so rich about the society to really think about. In the 1920s, we were having these same type of conversations in a much different way, but so long ago, we were still focusing on how do we do this better, and it gets me motivated every time to think about that long-lasting history. Let's jump to the next slide. So I have to give you all credit, especially for the ones that had put together the videos yesterday. Fantastic job by all the participants. It was very interesting to hear your guys' perspectives of what you thought of the stars and how you related it to your own military career and your unique thoughts. So I really appreciate your time in putting that together. Super interesting, and I'm very glad to have shared that with you guys. Let's jump over to the next slide. So this slide's in here to reemphasize the mission and vision, but really to give you guys a perspective of what I see this mission meaning. Obviously, a one-sentence mission is pretty tough to delineate, what it means in the grand scheme of things. But just quickly, let's review it. So we are an accelerated development program empowering the next generation of military leaders. But our vision is to become a preeminent leadership development organization focused on the 5 stars. Now, these are both concepts go hand in hand, and obviously our vision is something that we're striving to. But you have to take one step further of what does that actually mean. So let's go to the next slide. Where what I see it as being is I want to connect high potential future leaders across all military branches in order to test and challenge these cadets to become the very best versions of themselves, and thus improving the health and future of our beloved nation and military. I truly believe in the kind of the goofy saying that everybody always likes to quote is iron sharpens iron. I think when you put really smart people together and very motivated, just fantastic things happen across the board. And so that's what I really see this society being is a place where you not only get to connect with your sharp people within your military branch, you also get to reach across to a Navy and an Air Force. And I think somebody said it yesterday very well, is that when I'm in Scabbard and Blade, or when you're working with other high potential guys that have been already somewhat vetted across in some type of standard that you believe in, you automatically know, oh, that guy is someone I can work with. And I think that's so true that this society gives you kind of that level of confidence of, oh yeah, you're top 20% OML, or you're super motivated about getting improving yourself and your company. So I think it's great. In my opinion, really focusing on getting guys that are motivated is by far the most important thing for a company. Above all, I don't think you need to be in the top 20% OML, but you have to be somebody that's motivated to not only grow yourself, but also grow your peers. So there's a couple concepts that I truly believe in, and I think the society really embodies is, no person has ever gotten anywhere without help, and every successful person needs mentors. Not mentor, but mentors. Mentors are everywhere, whether it's your peers, whether it's your teachers, whether it's a superior, or even a subordinate. You find mentors everywhere. And also, I think collaboration is key to rapid improvement. I don't think you can have a steady state improvement line if you just do it in your pigeonhole. I think the only way for you to really take any type of exponential gains is through collaboration and getting with smart people that challenge you and bring new thought to different approaches to life. And people need to be challenged. I think that's one of the worst things that I see across the board is highly motivated individuals not being challenged and slowly turning into unmotivated, stagnant, complacent people that never meant to be those people, but because they were never challenged, they end up just slowly drifting into that hole. I truly believe that this is a society and this is an opportunity for each of you guys to reach out and really stretch yourselves past what you're given in your ROTC curriculum. So I know that's my opinion, and I'm open. If you guys have any questions, this is absolutely perfect time to start this kind of dialogue of, what does it mean to you, or if you have a question about kind of my thought process and how it relates to some of the activities you do, please don't hesitate. I will keep pressing through the national structure, but if you do have a comment, please shoot it in the group chat, and we'll have a short discussion.
You may also unmute yourself if that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a reminder of just what the actual organizational structure really looks like. You can go to the next slide, slide 9. So to remind everybody, so we have 2 organizations, nonprofit entities. We have the Scabbard and Blade Endowment Resources, which is our 501c3. It's an educational program. It's really an endowment resource that allows us to raise money for Scabbard and Blade at the national level, and also help support the services of national headquarters. National headquarters is a 501c4, which is a civic league. It's like what a lot of fraternities kind of fall under, or even what most controversial is like political super PACs and those types actually fall under C4 too. We obviously do not do any type of politicking, but it is what we fall under. And the biggest thing is because it allows leagues to kind of focus on different fundamental concepts that most social groups care about. So when this was founded back in, I think it was 1960, that this organization was actually founded, being this legal entity of the organization, they were more focused on a fraternal aspect of the society. And also 501c3s were really not the same kind of power that they have now. But then to kind of break that down, what I really want to emphasize is that we have the National Society of Scabbard and Blade, which has our JROTC program and an ROTC program. That's the senior program. So when you see senior memberships, that's falling under this entity of this National Society of Scabbard and Blade. Now we have the National Honor Society of Scabbard and Blade, which runs completely parallel, and you really see no gaps, but on paper it does have, you know, a completely separate line of how they're tied together. And the big reason, we'll talk about it in a second, is really because of ACHS, our accreditation source for our honor society. Next slide, please. So the next slide shows kind of what you guys, for the most part, see. You guys see a junior program, you see a senior program, you see an honor society, but for the most part, you see just on the two right side, the senior member and the honor society member, side to side. That's the way we intended it. We intended it for it to be really look like the same exact program, just as long as we're staying in line with what ACHS has requested of us. Next slide. So before we get into any other details, what I did actually want to talk to was that ACHS piece. So this ACHS is really a really cool piece of the society that we're an equivalent honor society as any other honor society that's out there. General Dollar did a great work at getting us accredited, and this offers you a ton of benefits. So at any time, if you're ever interested in like more about the honor society or what your membership actually means, I highly encourage you to skip on over to the ACHS website and kind of see what the accreditation source is all about, and what other people are doing with that accreditation. But after that, I actually want to kick this off to the National Cadet Command Structure, which this year is the first year we're going to actually implement it, and Megan has some more details of what it's going to look like.
So as you all know, right now, I'm the ROTC Operations Director, so all the commanders, I pretty much wrangle all of you to get information out of you. And it's usually supposed to be structured where it's more cadet involvement, and you report to a cadet that has a higher ranking, and they take the responsibility and the actions to uphold that job. And so we're working to get ourselves to that point. There's kinks we needed to work out prior to doing this. I think Austin and I are pretty much set to hand it off to 3 cadets. So how we decided to break it up is we are intending to have 3 cadets, and there are direct goals for having a national command structure is we want to definitely increase unit communication. Maybe it's easier for you all to talk to cadet than it is to talk to maybe someone who I don't know, that you don't even know. You want someone you can relate to, someone who's going through the same things as you. To increase cadet participation within your unit. So if you have somebody at that national level, maybe you know your university's more involved and you're needing more people. Maybe that need for people can increase your members and your participation, that they're going to feel utilized. Increase cadet to cadet interaction. Like I said, sometimes it's easier to talk to another cadet, someone who's going through the same thing as you. Help increase program standardization. So at this point, I know a lot of companies aren't the same. We don't really hold requirements that you have to be the same and work the same. Some people do a pledge process, some people won't. Some people they just want to get started, so they don't really know where to go from there. Some people like to uphold tradition. With the standardization, these commanders can they can set their own standards that they expect that their companies to either communicate with them, do certain things a month, get them more involved. You know, it's a good time to be creative in that position. And then develop initial set of best practices and cadet guides. At this point, we plan to help structure those cadet commanders and guide them in how they should be interacting with other people at that level. You know, we're even talking about giving them a different rank, a higher rank, because you are upheld to more responsibilities. And hopefully this will be at best a better practice for you all for future development. So we are growing, but at this time 3 area commanders is sufficient, and we're looking to have under those 3 up to 10 companies that they manage. Manage is more business term to me, or command. At this time, though, we would want an application process. We see not too many people being that interested, but we hope to really engage with you all and spark up some kind of interest for you all and give you something to look forward to. The application process is because we don't want people who just say, yeah, I'll do it, I get a higher rank, what else do I get out of it? We want someone who's going to be motivated, who wants to develop those skills. And so those people who are motivated to and know that they can do these things, and if not they would, or try to better themselves, that they can handle something like this, we encourage you to apply in that process. Those 3 commanders report to a national headquarters on a regular basis. So just like any chain of command, there's going to be somebody at that top that you report to. So you don't just hold all the information. Austin and I still process it. We want to know where you're at and how we can make the program better. So as much as you're expected to talk to these, let's say 10 companies, you're also expected to report that information up the chain, and vice versa. Information will flow up and it'll flow down. Communication will definitely be key. You know, there's a few ways that we can contact you all. There's email. Now we have social media, and we can call you. But if you're still not interacting with us, there's going to be that point where you're not fulfilling your duties. Communication is key. That's the only way we're going to know what's going on with the other companies. We're taking our job seriously. We want those people to take their job seriously. This is meant to replicate how military units communicate on a regular basis across the country and or the world. You're not going to always have all the things you need in your requirements at your location. A lot of times you work with different organizations or branches to get a mission done. But all that is still flowed through your own chain of commands, and they need to know what's going on as well. So, like I said, this is good for development and best practices. This is going to help you in real life situations. There's major leadership development opportunities, definitely. Like I said, if you're being upheld to a higher standard, you already do that in Scabbard and Blade, but these higher positions that we want to get cadets involved in on a national level, there's major leadership development issues or opportunities. We're going to be able to help and train you and give you those expertise from people that are directly on active duty. We're going to cut off that communication per company. If you would like more active duty time and more mentoring time, this is a good opportunity as well. Future-wise, this is way more broken out, and this is just an example map. This is very subject to change. I definitely believe it will, but as an idea, this is not how we're going to break them out. It does say example structure. As we get more companies, and as we start spreading out throughout the United States, it'll break up into areas, and you will have a couple more commanders, area commanders. But at this time, just for the sake of how small we are, we're big, but how small we are to what we could be, it's good to have 3 and to get you all just kind of spread out and experience the different, I guess you could say cultures, because different states, they're all culturally different to me.
So if you don't mind going back a little bit, I want to emphasize a couple points. So what Megan's saying is really pretty cool, because Megan and I were just talking about it last night. Wrangling 30 companies. I think 30 companies is really a max for one person to handle, and we're right at that mark. And I think that we can do much better. I don't know if anybody knows, but our recruiting practice is to not recruit. I don't know if anybody actually knew that. We've never actually reached out to any companies to say, hey, do you guys want to do this? We think this is a good program. This all organically happens and is pushed by you guys. So that's what's really unique about this organization, is that allowing us to build something and people adopt it as they come. But where we really see value is allowing you guys to actually reach out to other companies and allowing us to actually have a nice little platform that can be tailored and adopted by other people, where we're actually somewhat pushing. And I see that being a real possibility, but I think the biggest piece is that we have to have some type of national command from the cadet side. This whole organization is not meant for Megan or I to boost up our leadership skills. It's 100% meant for you guys to have additional leadership opportunities. And I think 10 is a perfect number. I think that what we're really looking for is 3 high-speed guys or girls, high-speed people to really come in and help wrangle the companies together and create their own little community. And it's not necessarily based on an geographical area. So like, you need to be on the West Coast to have these companies. It's really just you're going to be that area commander, but you can all be technically from the same company. We prefer a mixture of everybody being from scattered throughout. But the point is that is to give you guys additional leadership opportunity of man, how do I wrangle all these guys and accomplish this leadership opportunity for us? Whether it's an actual member development type activity, or if it's a area convention, or it's monthly meetings. Those are all good challenges that I think you guys will have a lot of fun trying to figure out how to do, or just get some great leadership out of it. Because it's a different perspective than some of the things that we usually do in ROTC. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think this is a great idea. I think especially you guys, once they take advantage of it, you guys will jump leaps and bounds ahead of your peers of seeing like, oh wow, I see a strategic direction and I see how to organize this large set of people, which is much different than what you see in ROTC. I can guarantee it was the first time I tried to do it. It's a huge learning curve, and I think General Dollar and Megan can attest that it's a lot harder than it sounds, but a really good opportunity to test your skills of organization and pulling people to the same vision. But that's all I have on it. We definitely want to stop here for at least some questions, get some feedback from you guys of what you're thinking your expectations are. If you have questions about the application process or really anything, but definitely want to get your thoughts.
So what is the application process? If there's like an application process, like what would that entail?
Yeah, Megan.
We were talking about
the question first.
Okay. The question was, what would the application process entail? We were talking about this last night. It's more like an assessment. So how you're given scenarios in some assessments. We want to see how you would handle them. I almost don't even want it to be like the most obvious answer. I really want to see how you critically think. And you want critical thinkers. You want ones who can think on definitely a different scale than your peers. And so those who have that drive to be in those positions, like he said, it can be harder than it seems. It can actually be very easy just depending on the type of person you are. If there's someone who's really good at this stuff, I can see you applying for it. If it's someone who's like, that's a weakness, I want to get better at that. I know it's going to be hard, but it's going to be a huge accomplishment if I do it and do it well. You are going to have an opportunity either way. So you're assessed on how you're able to handle these scenarios. And that's all we want to do. It's also going to depend on, for me, your company size. If you're a small company, maybe 5, 4 at this point, you need to really focus on your company first and growing, because at some point you all are going to graduate. If you're not getting any members or doing something to engage your members at your own company, I don't think you're ready for that level. So definitely have put in the work and done as much as you can at your company level, then I know that you would be good in that area level, because you have the expertise, you have the examples, scenarios, and the knowledge, because companies are going to come to you with questions. You may not answer them, be able to, they can come up the chain. That's a possibility, but if you can't answer them, that's what we want. We just want a well-rounded cadet we don't want to see fail, and you don't want to fail. We're going to be there to help, but don't set yourself up for failure.
And to add on to what Megan just said is, we're really looking for guys. We're looking for people that we can have full confidence in for a full year. This is something that does have to be taken, from the start of August all the way to the end of May. But it's something that we have to have confidence in you as a person, but also as being able to handle yourself across all the companies. So 100%, we think that there's plenty of guys out there, guys and gals that are out there that can handle this. The biggest question is just, do you have the commitment to be able to devote to the national side, and that your company is also in a good spot to be able to jump over to the national side?
Yeah, we don't want you to be your company commander and then an area commander at the same time.
It's too much.
A good example is if you've already been that area commander, you have some examples or expertise in that area.
Yeah.
And so you would be a good candidate for being an area commander. Any other questions? Yeah.
What are can you go more into how you can actually increase program standardization within your company?
How can you increase program standardization within your company? I personally, yeah.
So just to kind of piggyback off of his, but so we've run into some troubles like in our own standardization, whether it be like having Air Force cadets with Army physical fitness test standards. So as far as like running into those troubles within our own company, how will that look on the national scale as far as like inter-branch relations, assessing different services and things like that?
So yeah, so this is something that actually I think this is really and actually to get on to Zach's question that he put on, or he just posted on GChat, the types of responsibilities and also the standardization. So what you guys obviously have noticed about the companies that we gave kind of a blank slate, and obviously built around the 5 stars, but here's kind of the things you can do and the things you can't do. But for the most part, it's a blank canvas, and you guys get to create what you want out of it. That's why I see these area commanders as getting to take that next step of, okay, here's the blank canvas, and we see in this area, this is what the majority of the guys do. And you really will see how, like, every company uses this a little bit different. Some guys are very focused on honor society. We come here for professional meetings. Other ones are more social based. Others are more community based. Others are very strictly to just getting national speakers and going on different base visits. So everybody uses them differently. And what your job as an area commander is really going to be, okay, here's your set of group, or here's your group. Let's figure out how to get everybody on the same page, and then also how to make those standards across the board for that group. I believe in letting you guys kind of figure it out on your own, especially from a cadet area commander. So you guys, the way we see it right now is have 1 cadet commander and then 3 area commanders. Those 3 guys will have 10 companies, and then the 1 cadet commander will interface with Megan quite a bit of, here's kind of the vision that we see, but between the 4 of us, this is how we're organizing. And then you guys will work together of saying, okay, here's some standards that I think we can implement on our side. But you guys can do somewhat of an A/B test. I don't know if you're familiar with that kind of line of thinking, but it basically says, okay, here's your constant is companies, and you're going to say, okay, you're going to do a PT standard like this, and you're going to do an academic standard like this, and then see how how it affects the membership and the takes on the different companies, of what kind of response rates you're getting and stuff. Then the next semester you're able to say, okay, that worked really well on both sides. Let's combine those now and let's see if that worked, because now you have two independent variables that you can now put together and say, oh, that's an interesting mix. But that would be the cadet commander being able to see that full picture of, what was the adoption rate, and challenge you guys to look at a little bit more strategic level. So initially, I think it's actually really interesting to kind of be involved in it, because there's no standards, right? We're not going to push any standards on you guys. We're going to push a little bit of just what we expect.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's open to you guys to start crafting how it looks.
So along that same line, there's what's responsibilities. Some responsibilities we have already set out is dues. When dues are due, that's, I'm sending message after message. Why haven't you submitted? What are the cases? How can we help? And if there are things that you can't do to provide guidance, that can go up the chain. We want to be able to help you all. But you are going to have deadlines, which means you're going to have to plan enough time to give your company's deadlines. You see what I'm saying? It's a lot of planning, thinking on a bigger scale, and you're at a company level, it's making sure my members are good. You're at a commander level, it's making sure my companies are good. What companies are unhealthy? What can I do better? So ones that don't contact as much, except for what we necessarily tell them to go do, that's not being a good area commander. You're only just filling a position. You're not fulfilling a position. So yeah, as we talked about SMR, a monthly report. It's a one-pager. Basically, it's not something you would have to write a paragraph about. It's more like, can you check the boxes? We want to see how you're doing. Though you create your own standards, you have blank canvases right now. We still want to see if we can provide that guidance by the questions we ask. Maybe the things you're not thinking about. Those area commanders would collect those responses and go up the chain. We would review them and see where we can help and pass that back down the chain.
Yeah, something that if you kind of see the genesis, or if you've been with me since I started back 3 years ago, so like a mother company might have seen the kind of the deviations, or Lieutenant Colonel Olson, their advisor. But when we first started, it was just trying to figure out, okay, here's some things that we can do. Here's a membership process, and let's start implementing a somewhat of a standardized program. But now what we're kind of struggling with is understanding what your true needs are. So I have very limited time. Megan has very limited time, and every active duty officer that comes in is going to have limited time. When you guys hopefully convert and come back to give back to the society, you guys will be like, man, I'd love to help, but I only have a couple hours a week that I can dedicate. So we have to be very cognizant of the time that we request from ourselves, and it's not that we don't want to give more, it's that we have to be very focused of, okay, what can we do this week that's going to have the most bang for our buck?
Be successful.
Right, for you guys to be successful, because this is your society when we're just kind of playing in it right now. So the biggest thing is that it's tough for us to gauge, maybe where you're struggling, and maybe you want more help on organizing community service, or maybe you want more help of providing more honor society flavor to it. It's tough for us to gauge of where we may need more work. Obviously, we have a whole slew of backlog items that we need to knock out, but we want to make sure that we keep in line with the priorities that we're looking for, or that you guys are looking for from us.
Right.
So this would give us good insight as you guys are, as cadets, talking with each other, organizing of what you guys want to do, especially from like a dues side. Like, that's just a perfect example. Last year we did dues. I'm glad Megan brought it up. Last year we did dues to really kick off that if we want to become a scalable organization, we're going to have to collect dues. And we're going to have to figure out different pricing strategies that fit the needs of what you're looking for. $10 is kind of like it's $10. Everybody can afford $10. But as you guys start organizing yourselves and you say, hey, I would really like us to do a national convention in person. That costs money. And if we want to do something where we actually bring everybody out to one central location, we pay for it, we have to fund it in some capacity. And usually things like that don't get actually fundraised. Those are things that usually you have to fund within yourself. Scholarships are things you can fundraise for, but for the most part, those are things that that you do have to supplement with annual dues. but this would be an opportunity as you guys, because I'm not going to impose high costs. Right now we operate at kind of a bare minimum budget, and we don't try to impose anything that's strenuous on any cadets. Like, I've seen some dues for organizations are like $60 a year. We try to stay away from that. But if you guys want to take it there, we're open to that. But it's what the cadet direction is going to be, not what I just see as a profit margin of, here's what we can do with some cash. It's up to you guys of how you guys take the society.
Your dues fully go back into you. Yeah, we don't do anything with them. This is all volunteer time for us, and we love it. So what you decide to give more to, you would get back more. So if you want more, those are ideas that can be presented to us, and then they can be presented to the rest of the companies. Any other questions?
There has to be another question.
Do you mind if I get on?
I don't know.
Just regarding dues, here at MTSU, when we started up our initial chapter, our dues were approximately $110. So I mean, it was a little on the heavier side. We're still experimenting with our budget and everything, but we also have money for our next leadership, so that's beneficial. And it also, like you said, Lieutenant Frechette, that it really, we get out what we put in. So we had funds to get our own T-shirts. We had funds to do a staff ride, travel a little bit, purchase food for different events. So as far as dues, don't be, my advice would be don't be afraid to, up that ante if you'd like. But I'll obviously, feel out your own company. So I just wanted to interject that.
Perfect.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big point too. So from a national headquarters side, we definitely don't want to be taking, the way we allocate money is going to be so different than the way you guys are actually allocate money. I mean, we're going to be giving money towards scholarships, awards, different strategic initiatives you guys want us to roll out. When I think of like what we need to survive, it's not that much, surprisingly, just to survive at a national level. But for you guys to do fun things, you guys obviously need to have money or be willing to shell out cash every once in a while within your company. So, yeah, it's a great point. But that's also another great conversation as area commanders should have with their groups of, if you want to stick to your $10 and just national and not raise any other money, that's okay too. But figuring out where we really lie on that scale. So we kind of paved the way of introducing everybody to the idea of national dues. Now it's your guys' time to figure out what do we do next? What's the direction you guys want to take it? So getting involved. So I love it. How can I help? So this year, if you kind of followed along with the emails that I started sending out on the second semester, one of the things that I started incorporating to the advisors and the company commanders was kind of what are my priorities, what are Megan's priorities, what are we focused on, kind of the big projects that we're focused on this month, and giving you an insight to what our expectations are for the month. And in that was some goals that we presented last year, and we started tracking to them of how close are we to executing these different goals. And one of the goals was an action group. I would like to see different working groups established for our cadets and advisors that can actually start contributing to the society in whatever capacity that they represent. So to give you an example, what I'm really looking for is roughly 5 of each, cadets and advisors, that would sit on a little working group that would be able to kind of bounce ideas but also execute small initiatives. So maybe it's like what Cadet Whitehead has helped us out so much with this week is the video production of helping something like that. Or maybe somebody's very into social media, or maybe somebody's into figuring out how to do web store management, or just different random things that they think is valuable, whether it's maybe a membership development course or something like that, but they they're interested in supporting some type of development capacity, or even maybe fundraising or some type of national event. So these action groups are the people that would actually do that together. The area commanders, I know you're probably thinking, well, wouldn't that be, fall under the cadet command and the area commanders? Yes and no. That what we really want this first year, the area commanders to be focused on is just execution of getting everybody on the same page, the same vision, and improving execution. And these would be expanding our mission, essentially, these action groups. We'll talk a little bit more about remind everybody what the company council is. But the company council sets policies and essentially gets company buy-in. So if we were to talk about, a pricing strategy over the next couple of years, that would be a company council thing that I would want buy-in from you guys. But that's not you develop new initiatives, you're just setting the policy of what we think it should be as a whole organization. The action groups are execution of the policy. So you kind of get a little bit of different flavor of what the expectations are. But this is one great way. So if you have an expertise, whatever it is, we would definitely love to have the conversation of maybe there's a way we can fit you into a project. Actually, I'll say 100% I can get you in. It just depends on what kind of commitment you have and what you think you can contribute. So some of the things just to kind of get your minds moving, you have like project development. So like maybe it's you want to come up with a new communication program that worked really well at your university, or group leadership exercises that you thought was a really good way to break the ice or to grow your leadership's expertise or expand critical thinking, those types of things. Maybe it's one of those, or maybe it falls under program execution, like fundraising or finance, or something that you think is interesting that you think you wouldn't mind getting a little bit more experience on. Event management, volunteer management. Volunteer management is quite tricky, a really good exercise. Fundraising, finance, legal, content moderators, creative developers, video blogs, that kind of thing. But lots of different areas to get involved. We have lots of areas that we want to get involved in and want to start branching out to, but it really takes more volunteers. So here's some of the requirements, and it's not hard requirements, but they're a little bit soft requirements, I guess you could say. But you have to believe in the mission. Obviously, we all do, being in the organization, especially calling in right now. But the biggest thing is that they believe in the mission enough to where they don't have to be managed, and they also are self-motivated to where we don't have to say, okay, I really need you to get this done by this week. We have a very hands-off approach, like the way especially Megan and I work, and General Dollar, how he worked with us is pretty much, here's what we should get accomplished. What do you guys think? All right, talk in another month, and then we just get it done. That's what we'd expect out of these volunteers, because honestly, it takes a lot to have to manage a group of people, and it's worked well for us in the past of not having to have that very close management relationship. Also can work on loose guidelines. I think anybody that's in Scabbard and Blade right now does a good job at working with loose guidelines, which is perfect because you're going to have to do that for the rest of your career, and can think outside the box. Doesn't necessarily replicate the same things that a professional organization does. Instead, they do things that are best for this particular organization or that particular company. As far as time requirements, we're 100% flexible. It's really tied to what type of scope you want to get involved in, and also what you can invest. And like I said, the structure, it's closer to a peer-to-peer relationship. Obviously, being cadets and with officers, it changes a little bit, but for the most part, we work on a very tight-knit. You do your work and have conversations when we need to, but it's pretty relaxed. But we definitely need solid people to be a part of the organization and push different initiatives forward. It definitely cannot be just the two of us or just General Dollar. It definitely takes a group. Okay, so the program breakdown, we actually pretty much covered this whole piece, and because of the time placement we are, again, I want to reemphasize how we are lined up together, but at the same time, the ACHS has one entity, so we have a separate organization but we're tied through this dotted line, I guess you'd say. But the reason that we had this separation and the reason that there's even a senior membership, because we've survived a very long time with just Honor Society members. We're just the top 20% OML. And I think it's good so you understand, when I talk to the company advisors and we talk through this, of why this makes sense. And the biggest reason is that, if you're a top 20% OML, that usually doesn't change much. You're talking maybe a 1 or 2 spot deviation. So really, you're kind of set after your sophomore year. It's you're going to be in the top 5, or this is just how it is. So you're not going to get a lot of new members. It's going to be pretty much the same people. But that doesn't mean that there's not extremely motivated people that are trying to improve themselves. And producing good and efficient officers is exactly what the society was meant to be about. And we, after talking about it at length, we really didn't know if segmenting those just those 5 guys from an OML standpoint was necessarily the best thing to do as for an entire unit. So you think about what General Dollar said yesterday and how he talked about the double-edged sword of unity. And I think it's so true that Scabbard and Blade is somewhat of a dangerous organization, that if we're not careful and we're not very careful of how we're developing our core of our unit, and we become very incentivized by just the top 20%, we start to segment ourselves from the reality that is our unit, that most likely we're developing each other, but we're staying so tight that nobody else is, either everybody's becoming bitter against this entity, or we're no longer achieving that mission of actually developing the unit and creating better officers. So I just challenge you guys to understand why we're doing it and take a harder look at what the role as senior members are and what the real role of Scabbard and Blade is, and how obviously the Honor Society fits in with the senior membership, and how they both complement each other to, in the end, create better officers. Next slide. So the only thing that I really want to emphasize on this is senior programs to produce highly efficient junior officers. It's not for everybody, but it is meant to identify the ones that are ambitious and looking for a challenge. The Honor Society is more focused on, hey, not only am I ambitious, but I also want to make sure that I have a competitive resume. So let's get this Honor Society down so I have it on paper, and this is something that I can make sure that is not only progressing me as a person, but also progressing me professionally. And I just want to remind everybody, we do have a junior program, and again, you're probably thinking in your head, well, isn't this enough? Senior membership is quite a bit, and it is. And I think one of the big things about the junior program is that, to give you insight in our thought process of why we have it, is that JRC is such a big community, and one of the core competencies is actually getting kids to college and keeping them out of trouble. I think JRC is a fantastic program, and they have an incredibly high success rate of actually getting kids to participate and to achieve those high standards of high school education, but also getting them to college. So what we try to do is exactly take the great things that you guys are doing and adapt it to the JRC program, and allow them to benefit off of the hard work that you guys are doing on this side, and set it up in basically the same framework. So it's a really interesting program, though. If anybody has the opportunity to volunteer at a JRC unit, I highly encourage it. It would be a great company development event, because they're so eager to learn from you guys and to hear about you. If you ever felt like you're the lowest on the totem pole being a cadet, go to a JRC unit, and you're all of a sudden you just elevated tenfold, because they think pretty highly of you guys. So highly encourage it, but interesting program, and you guys have a lot in common with another JRC unit. Even recommend sponsoring a JRC unit to get into Scabbard and Blade, and you can have them and create your own little mentorship program. I don't know if anybody's done Big Brother, Big Sister, but it's an awesome program, and it's incredibly fulfilling to see someone grow as a person and watch the little things that you say that you don't realize that they pick up on, how much of an impact it has on their life. So highly consider or highly recommend JRC as an interesting avenue for you guys to develop yourselves and others. I think that's it for my stuff, for now at least. I'll turn it over to Megan from the growing your membership standpoint, growing your leadership.
So yeah, growing your leadership. Some wonder how can I grow it? What are possible ways? Write down company goals. A lot of people have personal ones, but I recommend 3 at minimum. Y'all hold a command leadership for a year. There's a lot you can accomplish in a school year. Set 3 of them and set them above your standards. Make it reachable, or obtainable, but definitely set it higher than you thought y'all could all do at once. Accomplishing those goals together also, you're going to bring a lot of cohesion in between each other and growth. And that's maybe what you need in order to accomplish a lot more. Discover your members or your company's strengths and weaknesses. There's things that you need to get done as a company and an ROTC. If you see someone stretched thin, maybe they're not good at those things, put someone else there who's stronger. You want to be successful. Definitely utilize each other. Learn to optimize your talents and accomplish those goals that you have set. Be effective in your role. Your purpose. What is your purpose? Why are you fulfilling this role? Why are you a member? For some people, it's to put something down on paper, and for some of you, it's really to develop who you are. Some ROTC units aren't that great. Maybe they don't learn that much. And that's just plain fact. If this is an opportunity for you to learn, then take it. We need effective, efficient officers, not ones who are just rolling through the motions. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Always be learning. Develop your skills. You don't grow in comfort. You definitely don't. If you feel at some point you're just too comfortable, you're not learning anything anymore, you are not growing. Plain and simple. You are not going to grow. If you're not growing, you're not developing who you are as a person, and just in general. Get out of your comfort zones. Maybe start with these goals. Maybe they're out of your comfort zones, and you're going to rely on everyone's strengths and weaknesses to even accomplish them, because you can't do it on your own, and you can't, like setting a PT score that's very reachable for every member is not setting the standard. Maybe some of you who are that good at getting a PT score need to be running with the ones who are not good. Need to be training them better. How can I help make you better? Because those people who have never reached that kind of a score think it's unfathomable. But maybe you just spark something in them that means that they can go harder. Work with a mentor. I guess we'll stress this a lot. He said, Austin said it earlier. Get your advisor involved. Advisors can play a vital role. A lot of the times you just have to have one, and you all run it. It is cadet involved. It is cadet run, but advisors can play a huge role. We rely on them for their expertise, just like we rely on alumni and retired people. Gentlemen and ladies to come talk to us. Your advisor can play that same role. Get involved and engage in volunteering. Nothing accelerates development more than experience. So like we've stated before, how you could get involved on your national command level, getting involved in your community. If you don't have a good strength that maybe you'd like to have, these volunteering for these certain opportunities can give you that experience that you've been looking for, or maybe just strengthen you just a little bit more. And all you can do is just keep doing those type of events until you get good at it. Practice makes better. Can you talk on this one a little more?
Yeah, so the new member profile. So what we really want to emphasize is that, we always like to talk like, and I started to hit on it, like, the top 20% OML. 100% you have to get, we're not looking for top 20% OML. We're looking for guys that we can get to the top 20% OML, that can achieve the 3.5 GPA, achieve these high standards that we expect out of future officers. So what you're looking for in these new member profiles, and this is really kind of a recruitment slide, or to help you kind of understand what guys within your unit, or gals, sorry Megan, that you should be focusing on and encouraging them to join your society. Because the really important piece is that having one lethargic cadet within your company, it's so toxic. And I highly encourage, if you find one that is just bringing your guys' company down because whatever perspectives they have, just get rid of them. It sounds bad, but you try to change course, but it is detrimental to your company if you have people that don't believe in what you guys are there to do. And it is so important that you stay on the same page and everybody has a cohesion of what they believe that company's mission is to do. So the thing is, so let's talk to just some of these points. They have to be eager to improve, and sometimes they don't know where to start, and that's okay. That's what you guys are here to do, is to help them understand what those stepping stones look like. They excel in academics, or they have the aptitude to excel in academics. If they're just dying on from the academic standpoint, they really shouldn't be investing any time in any other organization, unless there is a hope that this organization would help them strive for a better academic achievement. But for the most part, if somebody's just too busy or just too overloaded, that shouldn't be your target for recruiting. Also, they need to be looking for areas to get involved. It shouldn't be just, they should be somebody that's open to just outreaching within the community or within ROTC, but somebody that has kind of the need. Obviously, trying to recruit somebody that doesn't see it or doesn't see the value in these types of organizations is really never going to be that member that you're hoping them to be. Also, they need to be somebody that is realistically going to get commissioned. They can be a top-notch guy, but if they just don't fall in the lines of the standards that you expect out of officers, no matter how cool they are, they don't belong in the organization. Also, we already talked about believe in the mission of the organization, and they're also not there for just a credentials or an image of, oh yeah, I'm in Scabbard and Blade, and at Scabbard and Blade in our university we're very top-notch. You want to get rid of those people because they're not going to be there for development. They're just going to be there for the social aspect. And as much as the social is a huge piece of this organization, there has to be getting down to business and actually doing things to develop each other on a frequent basis. And I already said the last one, but definitely doesn't have to be in the top of the class, but you need to focus on their potential and their eagerness to improve. It is so important for your entire team of gathering guys and gals that are so focused on just improving themselves and each other. If you veer off of that path, it's going to be a hard place to get back to. So yeah, so I'm sure you're thinking right now, it's like, oh man, why would if I got the top 20% of OML and they're all interested in getting, why would I just worry about them and those subpar members, just keep them out, just kind of like what he's saying. But 100% best way to learn is to teach. You're giving back to other cadets that are struggling is something that will only help pay dividends in the long run. Understanding how to recraft your vision for something, whether it is how to achieve a PT score, or whether it's how to do better in academics, or whether it's how to just approach communication differently or approach yourself differently, because we all have different styles of how we communicate and how we interact and lead. Sometimes it is the best way to see is to be around really sharp people, and I've seen people that interact with high-speed guys, and I think you're the sum of 5 people that you interact with most. That those people that have surrounded themselves with very top-notch people have turned very, very top-notch very quickly, just because of that attitude. But really, the last thing is that no matter what, none of this matters if nobody's willing to do the hard part of searching out the applicable content and working with their peers. If you're just there and you're not there to actually strive to better each other, it's going to be a hard battle on all sides. So just keep that in mind, that you're looking for guys that are going to participate to develop themselves and others. I can't foot stomp that enough.
Like we said, we would retouch on mentorship. They're really all around you. I've had many mentors. I've had cadets who were older than me, gone through the process. I've had maybe 1 or 2 cadre, and then a lot of them have just been alumni that hung around. They were my mentors, and some of them I could still say today. One of them's online right now. I think he speaks to both me and Austin, but these are people who have gone above and beyond to us. Maybe it's something, that little something that you just say wow to, or like, how did you even accomplish that or do that? Those are things they've been through. It's because they're things that you can't fathom yourself. You can't see yourself doing. But we're capable of all these things. Those are the things you look for in leaders, is how did you gain that skill? And it's because of their experiences. Those are times where you just ask them, how can I grow that? How do I get involved in something that's going to help me grow that skill that you have? Don't think that mentorship has to be formal. You're attached to them for a long duration. That's true. Like I said, General Dollar is one of my mentors. He's someone who also just genuinely cared, just cared, and that goes a long way. You're going to have family members, you're going to have friends who care a lot about you, but someone who hasn't known you except for how you've developed and how you've led people, and they just genuinely care because of who you are as a person, that means a lot. You respect that person. Respect, to me, is how you form a mentor. So think of mentorship like college. Some go to their college advisor. You have good college advisors out there who can help guide you. I did. In my college, he was a retired major in the Air Force, so that helped. And he helped direct me and lead me into the classes I needed, or he just helped me in the classes I didn't have to take. And he just wanted to talk about his experiences so that I could still develop in my counseling sessions. He kept me on a general path and a professional one at that. It was interesting to go to a college advisor, and it felt like reporting in every time. But it kept me on my toes. It was like everywhere I turned, it was someone always challenging me or developing me. I never really had the easy way, and that's what I preferred. Then I have a teacher, also called your boss. This person guides you through the subject or project. My example, so I worked for a barbecue place, and it was actually just a food truck. But my boss was a retired enlisted Air Force officer who did more than 20 years. All the time giving me his stories. Everyone loves to talk, but giving me his stories and giving me crap and never making my life easier, and always playing the officer card because he was enlisted. Just like I said, always just challenging me. It was I always had to be on my toes. It was like I can't be lax anywhere, and it pushed me to keep my knowledge skills up, keep the communication flowing, because those people also learned to respect me even though they're so much older. They had respect for me, and I didn't want to let them down. Then you have a tutor, also known as a peer, that is a couple years older, to guide you through the subject and navigate the teacher. So I pledged another organization. I'm just using examples. They're the best way I've learned, but I did a pledge to a different organization, and that was really the first military environment I had been in, was this pledge process. It was hard. It was, I wanted to quit. I maybe said I quit out loud a couple times, and then I quit in my head 100 times that. So, but quitting and letting these people down who were giving me such a hard time just would have gave them a bigger satisfaction. I couldn't do it. But because I couldn't do that, and those were those points that they knew, they thought that I would say I quit, and I still didn't. They gained respect for me as I did for them. I saw what they were doing. It was pushing me to a point of how can you give up? And I knew I had signed up for military. I just knew that. So if I say I quit halfway along the road because someone gives me too hard of a task, I'm not going to complete the mission. If I can't complete the mission, why did I sign up for that job? It's any job. Any job you're given, your mission is to get this done. I don't want to do that. I don't need you. So I didn't want to ever get to that point. I've had great mentors and teachers. Finally, you have your friends and that random guy you sat next to. This person is the one who is going to help you with the targeted impromptu questions. Okay, yeah, my best friend, I ended up being in ROTC. I actually tried not to have too many of them just so I could branch out a lot more because I was always involved in ROTC. But this one happened to be in ROTC, and we liked the same things, but we'd be on a car ride somewhere, and he would just challenge me with a question out of nowhere and really want to know my intuitive thoughts about it. And it was like I had to think sharply just to, like, it, I don't know could not be an answer. It just couldn't. He wouldn't let me say I don't know. And so I started doing that same thing. And it's like, no, think on your toes, be able to, and they're political, they're in-depth questions, they're philosophy, life questions. And she's like, wow, I never thought of that, or I never was able to think that way. You know, challenge your friends, challenge your peers. It's easy to talk about things that don't matter and the stupid crap, and it's fun to laugh about it, but, you know, challenge each other. That could be a strength that they grow into, be able to rapidly answer something. You know, whenever you need those type of answers.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, so I asked Megan to kind of provide these examples because I think it's so important to kind of get somebody else's take of what mentorship is like. And the thing that I want to really show by this slide was that don't think of like the traditional aspect, like I know in RTC, I can't tell you how many times that they try to get some type of mentorship program set up, and it was like 1 year above you or 2 years above you. But the idea is that those are usually never effective. I've never seen one that actually works. What's really effective is that mentality that mentorship is all around you, and it's not something that is a general that is there to support you. Yes, they are there, but at the same time, it's all around you. You know, looking for those opportunities where you're growing, you're developing from a subordinate or from a guy that's your equal, or from a teacher. Understanding that those are all mentorship periods, and there doesn't necessarily have to be a formal relationship, but the point is that being open to hearing the advice and being able to ask, hey, do you mind asking or letting me ask you a couple questions about whatever it is. If it's that one moment that you guys had that conversation, that's great, and that's a mentorship opportunity. But really to hit your stride, it really impresses on you to take every opportunity where you think, oh, that guy has an interesting perspective, I should learn more, just to kind of broaden the horizons. Even if I don't agree, it's kind of interesting. Taking that approach is going to be 100% valuable to you guys the longer you guys go, because the ones that I see, especially on active duty, the guys that are the most inquisitive and really challenging themselves to learn from other people's perspectives are by far the most high-speed guys I've met. And just that curiosity continues to make them better people for it. So just, I can't say it enough. Mentorship and striving to be curious, super, super important.
So we'd like to open up this to any questions or experiences maybe you've had. Are there times you've experienced a mentor, or how you found your mentors?
So just to tie today's day 2 convention to day 1, we had Captain Smith, our company advisor, talk yesterday about how important it was for your advisor to care and genuinely care. So our experience when we were first starting up, we had everything laid out. We constructed a constitution. We had set standards academically for each one of our cadets that we were going to have in Scabbard and Blade. And one of the main conditions that Captain Smith had for us to start out was a physical fitness standard. Him being a ranger instructor, an infantryman, he was very big on physical standards. And he said, well, the only way I'm going to allow this charter to be recognized here at MTSU is you're going to have this physical standard, which was an 80% score, or 80 score in each category of our Army physical fitness test. And at the time, our founders even didn't meet that high standard. So what we had planned to do is we would have 2 chances to make that to meet that standard. So we had our first APFT rolled around, and 3 of the 4, or actually all 4 of us didn't make the standard. So, 3 of the 4 made it, or 3 of the 4 didn't make it. Only one made it. So everything that we worked really hard to was about to just fall under. And Captain Smith was completely willing to allow that to happen. So he really, really pushed us to meet that standard. And by the second chance, 2 of the 4 made it, and then we acquired 2 other officers, or 1 other to come in, and our charter was alive again. We can make it happen. So as far as like challenging yourself, it continues, whether it be from that mentor challenging you or your peers, as Megan and Austin stated. You have to continue to sharpen yourself. You have to continue to challenge yourself, whether it be physical standards, starting a book club to make sure you're disciplined and reading and continue to learn, whatever it may be. Make sure you continue to challenge yourself through all different angles. So.
Yeah, I completely appreciate what you're saying. I can't agree more. It's really, really good insight, and it's great to hear kind of reiterating the same points that we're on the same page, because I couldn't agree more. But I'm also extremely curious of what other cadets are thinking too. So I'm gonna call on UCLA. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Okay. One of the big things I found is that NCOs can be the biggest mentors that we have. So my company advisor is our lieutenant colonel. Obviously, he's a super busy guy because he's running the battalion. So a lot of times when I need something, I go to the master sergeant that we have here. I found like he helps me out so much because obviously he spent like 2 years as a first sergeant. He's just done so much throughout the Army, and that's honestly probably the biggest like mentor that we had. And we only got him this semester, and already like I've learned so much from him. I just like can't wait to learn more.
Yes, utilize them. You're going to utilize them whenever you're on active duty. We're in a weird situation, I think, but
being that we don't have enlisted that we work with, but
yeah.
But yeah, you bring up actually a great point. I mean, traditionally we've always said that it's officer to officer, especially in the Air Force ROTC. We Air Force guys don't get usually many enlisted that even interact with the cadets. I think it's a little bit different on the Army side and even on the Navy side. It's a good point that what we really need out of advisors is people that are ready to give back to you. That's 100% the most important piece. So it's great to hear that you guys have a great advisor that's supporting you guys. Okay, so Taylor's question was having trouble recruiting Navy midshipmen. Do you have any advice as to how to bring more of them in, or is this a larger issue? So I wouldn't say that this is I would say it's a larger issue of how to compel more university or different ROTC functions to participate within each other. What we find is that if Army starts out, then it stays pretty much an Army program, and engaging the other services becomes a little bit tougher because it's all about buy-in. Every project that you work on is all about buy-in. So when a charter is formed by Army, you're kind of a visiting organization or visiting branch. So the only thing that I could really offer advice to is that it has to be 100% buy-in on all sides. That almost scratching the surface of, okay, let's take a whole step back of what is something that we can all participate in. Maybe it's not full Scabbard and Blade, but maybe it's a Scabbard and Blade ball, or maybe it's a 5K that you organize as a group, but you're taking an incremental step of, okay, how do we get buy-in for this whole group to participate together? So let's say, one approach to it could be, let's do a staff ride to a historical museum, and during that time, let's invite all of Navy, all of Army, all of Air Force, and let's just all go. And then when we're there, we're gonna, obviously have our Scabbard and Blade gear on, or to kind of do the pitch of just, this is what we're about, this is what we like to do. Or maybe it's a potluck, maybe it's something that's a little bit less formal. But the point is that they have to have a buy-in. They have to understand what the organization does. And I don't know if this is helping, but I'm curious of what you have tried and what you haven't tried. But I know the biggest thing is that organizations have to feel that they are going to play just as big of a role as you are. It has to be a joint effort and not this is an Army effort and we're just participating, because then you definitely get disengaged service.
Yeah, I would definitely reiterate on that. If it's been mostly Army or if it's been mostly Air Force, maybe they just don't see where they fit in. If you've made it that point, because they wouldn't volunteer or join, maybe that's something that you relook on how you're presenting yourself. It is open for everybody: Marines, Navy, Air Force, Army. We highly encourage you to interact with each other. Lieutenant General Huber yesterday talked really well on his joint missions and accomplishments he's had, and he's had to be able to communicate with everyone. He said his favorite people to really talk to and hang out with were Navy. So think about those things. Maybe it's just something, communication gap at your university, problems within your own ROTC. Be creative. Think of ways to solve those. You gotta start somewhere, but I wouldn't give up, and I would continue to press the issue. There's going to be some freshman, some new one that comes in, and you're still pushing the issue, and that's going to be what it takes. They're going to be able to communicate throughout their years as they go through their training.
Yeah, so I'd like to hear from Taylor and Zach have you guys, what have you tried, or what kind of pushback or what kind of sentiment are you getting back from them? Just out of curiosity, if it's a Navy thing or if maybe it's an organizational thing. I've always thought of it as an organizational thing, not as a Navy ROTC issue. But maybe I'm coming from a different spot.
This is UW Madison speaking now. We think that on our end it's more of a patient issue rather than actually just an issue. So I think it's just not pushed enough. That kind of that breakdown in communication between our organization, between Scabbard and Blade, and the individual branches. So that's probably something that we'll try and focus on in the future to try and get Navy and Marine options more involved in Scabbard and Blade.
So I want to stress on one point. So a lot of their Navy, they really only have their interaction with their, not true, but most of who they listen to are their cadre members, the people that train and teach them. That's their leaders. You know, maybe it takes one person from that side to really advocate for it and show, and you show that there are opportunities for Navy to excel and develop their leadership skills to that cadre member. Maybe that's what it takes to advocate for it. I know at OSU we tried to have an Army advisor and an Air Force advisor. Maybe get one of their cadre members a little more involved and say, we would like your expertise. It's a joint leadership. We want to learn what Navy does. If we can't get Navy members, would you mind being a mentor and a leader and coming to a couple of our events? Just as an idea. I've never had the Army or the Navy ROTC experience, so.
Yeah, Taylor, I think you actually hit it pretty on the head. So I'm about to go to Cal Berkeley for ROTC, and I was talking with some of the Navy guys when I was up there, and their program is quite different than the way that our program is. I mean, is the degrees of recruitment. It goes from Army being #1 for recruiting, or having recruiting standards. And recruiting standards mean like we want to get 15 people to commission this year, whatever it is. And then you have Air Force, which is a little bit less, and the Navy is even less. They have very few officers that they commission on an annual basis, and that's in addition to their. It's even a smaller number when you actually incorporate Annapolis. So I guess the point is that they really heavily emphasize academics and their core curriculum of actually executing their drill that they do have, but it is quite unique from the standpoint it's not the same type of ROTC life as an Army guy experiences and an Air Force guy. I think one of the interesting pieces, because there are so very few Navy Navy ROTCs in existence as is, and they're all very small. To add on to that is bridging that gap. Like, I mean, at ROTC or at OK State, when I was there, we had a tremendous issue with engaging with Army, just generally. It wasn't. It's kind of funny. You get into active duty, and it's like, whatever. Everybody kind of makes fun of each other, but at the same time, nobody really cares that much. But when you're in ROTC, it's, for whatever reason, seems a much more harsh environment. Like, everybody's very like, I'm Army, and that's my identity, and I'm Air Force, and that's my identity, and the communication seems to break down a lot more, but which is even a greater opportunity for you guys to figure out how to bridge that gap. No, I'm not giving necessarily advice, but this is a really interesting, good conversation to start engaging on of when somebody does it right. We need to start exercising of how we can start pulling in Navy and just the other units, because I can guarantee other Air Force, Army units, let alone not even engaging in Navy, are probably having that same issue that you're talking to, Taylor.
Yeah. General Dollar was a big help. He has a tremendous amount of contacts. But we didn't have Navy ROTC at all, but we wanted to learn from every branch. It was hard enough to break down our communication issues with Air Force and Army and to learn about them. I mean, we had no Navy contacts. We didn't have an ROTC, so how can we learn about the other side? But we had Admiral Slavonic. General Dollar was able to provide, as an alumni and just people who he's obtained contacts of over the years, be able to provide that side, that flavor for us. And that if there was a Navy ROTC at our unit, I think that would have really shown that we're open to learning about who they are. So definitely make sure your communication's open, push it just a little bit more, involve your cadre, see if there's an alumni hanging around that was Navy. Get them to come talk to you and show, the Navy, there's development and leadership opportunities for you all. We're learning about it. Maybe you could come learn about it.
Yeah, I gotta give you guys credit, UW-Madison, for doing such a. You guys have some great pictures of joint, but it's interesting to kind of solve that gap. Definitely want to hear more about it. So this next year, I'll definitely put that in my notes to think about more, of kind of watch how you guys do and see if there's any way we can help. But if anything, just learn from what you guys are trying or what has worked and hasn't worked. A good discussion. I appreciate everybody starting to get involved. Eric, you're next. So you're next on the awkward question stop.
So development ideas. So developing, Austin's worked really hard on being able to provide a lot of documents for companies to be able to excel or learn from. These are very easily accessible. All it takes is a little more effort on your part to go on the website and look them up. I actually have a screenshot of that later on, but your Constitution, people wonder maybe how you conduct business. This is one of those ways that you can either adjust it to your company or figure out how to do it on a national level. You're already meeting those requirements or standards. The manual, I really read through that manual not too long ago, and it really intrigued me. Definitely out of date. So some of you who are still using it, good on you. It's got a lot of good history, honestly. It's kind of like easily the manual.
Yeah, so one of the things for the company manual, so what we try to do with this, if you guys have kind of browsed through the scabbardandblade.org website, you'll see this Google site now, and it has all this administration built in and what are some company development activities. That was the company manual, but now it's been converted into just an electronic form. One of the things that I found was that these first couple of years that I was doing it was a lot of people weren't referencing a living or a document like that, and because it was kind of it was baselined every year, it was a lot harder for me to change on a pretty consistent basis of adding new insight into how to do a process or whatever it was. So converting it over to kind of a web-based doc was a little bit easier to make sure that I could push out the info that I needed to. But yeah, and then I'll let Megan go back to the finance tool and the other stuff.
So company finance tool, this is another document Austin has geniusly constructed it. Those are, so people who start fundraising or they already have funds, you definitely want to keep a good budget. You know, when it comes that time to transition and the new commander or finance officer is like, whoa, we don't have anything. Where did it go? Those are things to keep track of. Really just to help you stay on track, just to help guide you. If you're handling maybe a lot more money than you should be, definitely utilize it. Maybe you don't have a receipt book, but it's some way of tracking your finances, seeing how much you spent this year to how much you're going to do this year. Definitely a good tool. Member database. So a lot of you come to us, we get a lot of questions like, or at least from alumni, hey, do you have records from back when? And you know, as much as it's transitioned through national headquarters and person to person, you got to have good continuity and good member databases and documents. There's been many members who have gone through this since it started in 1904. But like MTSU finding a charter and seeing those members on there from their initial charter, it was interesting. You can see what alumni may still be around, and those are people you can target. Who knows? But having that database somewhere for you all as well, those cadets that come in maybe 5-10 years from now can contact you. Having that member database.
Yeah, let's actually take a short deviation as General Dollars, I was just looking at the comment feed, kind of started to interject in a couple spots. But let's see if I can get him unmuted, because I think we were having some trouble earlier with actually the unmuted. He said his mic doesn't work, but anyways, his comments were trying to suggest getting a naval officer in. I think that's a fantastic idea. General Dollar's seen it work multiple times before. Your cadre advisors being that a little bit of top cover. I think what we see even at the MTSU level is that they've had a lot of success, but after talking to Captain Smith quite a bit, he's like, honestly, I really don't do a lot. He's like, I give that encouragement and validity to the program, but really I don't do any content development or anything crazy. So I think that it's a fantastic way to make sure that cadets are feeling that they're spending their time efficiently, and that they're not just wasting it on something that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But finding those naval advisors that get it is incredibly helpful. He also said one other piece is actually reaching out into the MOAA or to like another veterans organization. I think that's a fantastic advice, especially if you guys do any work with like American Legion or an MOAA or any type of like volunteer service events with them. I think it's a fantastic way to pull in a retired naval officer or really a retired naval enlisted person to actually reach back into your RC unit. I can't tell you how many times, I think General Dollar can attest that senior leaders or previous leaders, they're very, very interested in getting the opportunity to talk with you guys. So being able to reach back and say, here we have a spot for you in a capacity of actually coming to a meeting, once a month or once a quarter, that means a great deal to a lot of retired gentlemen and ladies. So definitely reach back and figure out some ways to engage and make them feel that they have a place. I think that's another piece is that alumni, and I can speak from experience, that it's like, yeah, like absolutely I'll come to OK State or absolutely I'll support whatever alumni capacity I'm in. But when I feel like I'm just awkwardly sitting there or like don't have a spot and I'm very confused of what they're wanting out of me, or I feel like none of the guys want to come talk to me or anything like that, it's incredibly discouraging to want to come and do it again. Like, yeah, you'll stick it out for that one, but understanding that the alumni doesn't interact very often, and I even see it with general officers that will come and do a speaking event, and then they'll just be kind of like standing on the fringe and trying to engage, but the cadets are so nervous or they don't really know what to do and how to interact, and the general is like, well, I don't know, necessarily, if, to kind of butt in because I feel, not a part of that university for so long. So I know I'm kind of going on a tangent, but the biggest piece is there are plenty of people that would be more than happy to engage and have that intimate conversation with that naval advisor or whatever advisor it is, and help push those initiatives forward. But your goal has to be to really reach out and find those people. General Lawler, I hope I covered it and I didn't butcher your thought too much. But yeah, so she asked me to kind of talk to the operations plan. So there's a PowerPoint slide deck that was really intended for all the things that I see a company needing to do. There's a couple of things that you need to do at the very start of your semester as a group to say, here's some things let's just make sure we're all on the same page about. One is like actual dues collection or events that we want to do. So if we want to do a staff ride, let's put it down on paper now and let's make some goals. Like Megan said, come up with your 3 goals that you want for the year. That has, the way I think is best for goals is that you have your top level goals of, hey, I want to do a development event, one development event. And then your next layer of goal would be a staff ride, a 5K, or whatever it is, but you start to decompose it into smaller sub-goals that are actual, what makes up that goal. So then you can actually say, oh, checkbox, that makes sense. We actually did it. It's measurable. Because I think a lot of the times we make these goals that sound really good, that sound very academic, like I used all the buzzwords, but I didn't actually make it something that I could actually check off and say that, yeah, that's complete. Maybe it doesn't complete it in the whole capacity that you would intend, but I think that it's that this operations plan could be adapted to make sure that your company stays on the same page, and at the end of the year you're able to look back and say, here's how we did. And I think that's so important to see where you are now and the gusto that you have at the very start of the semester to help keep you on pace throughout the whole semester.
Meeting agenda, in a way I interpret this, definitely set forth how many meetings or how much you intend to do throughout the year. Maybe it's one major event. How many meetings do you need to have prior to that? We try to have a meeting a month for all members. Make sure everyone's still on the same page. Your command group, maybe have 2 a month, every other week, because you are the one leading your company. You have to be more on track than the rest of your members. So if you have those events coming up, make sure you're properly planning, set those things aside, and maybe have a attendance mandatory type of thing. As much as they have to meet PT score, have an attendance that they have to meet so that you are effectively communicating to all your members and you're not having to reiterate or repeat yourself as often as you do. Company bylaws, there is a template. We generally send this out. Some universities actually require it. And it is a template, so it is adjustable a bit, but bylaws are just a way of counsel. How are you going to, say you have a new requirement or rule, how are you going to enforce that? You want to have a majority vote or a 2/3 or something like that. That's what your bylaws are for. And mostly every nonprofit or organization will have a bylaws that they follow. It's a way of structuring your company to follow a set of rules that aren't necessarily hard. They're just, if we want to conduct business properly, we want everyone's opinion and we want to be able to make the right decision at the end of it.
Yeah, so the best practices, so I think one thing I will say is that we're going to take a 5-minute break pretty soon, but the last point of the best practices, and same with all these documents, is that this is kind of that initial guide stick for you to create your company and to help give you guys a little kick. Like the meeting agenda, there is an actual template to help you guys, write down an agenda pretty methodically so that every time it's the same and help keep you guys on the same page. So when you hit your administrative meetings, you're not dilly-daddling of, wait, what are we supposed to accomplish, and kind of wasting your time. And really what I'd rather you do, and not have to do very many admin meetings and really focus on, fun things that are closer to the goals that you guys want to accomplish. So that's why those things are in there. But the best practices really is going to go back to you guys, and as you guys develop your own cadet national structure, is coming out with, okay, here's how we're going to do these things now. Here's how we're going to do, a monthly Google Hangout with each other to get on the same page. All these things are things that are going to be impressed on you to say, this is really effective. I think this is going to have a large impact. So let's do this, and let's make sure it gets out to all the companies. But it's going to be 100% on you guys to come up with those.
So the importance, why are these documents important? Why is development important? You want to start off strong organizationally. You'll have some founding members, and if you're not developing your company in a strong way, those people who have just followed you, they're not going to have the eager drive to continue on with your company and carry it like you all have done. Don't let your leadership challenge for the year be focused on getting grips on the organization. We want you to focus on development. Continue to grow and lead. Like we said, don't get comfortable. If you're constantly pushing yourself and you're realizing that you're experiencing all these new things, that's more enticing than it is just to go through the motions and barely be there. And then you're wondering, why are you forking over money for something that you're not getting anything out of? Tailoring, as much as we've said, you have a blank canvas in a lot of areas. Tailor it to your company's needs, whatever ROTC units you do have and what you don't have. Realize the type of members that you do have in ROTC as a whole. How are you going to maybe tailor it to where you can engage more? These documents are meant to be guided to program execution, and don't feel that you can't tailor these. Just like you have an example bylaw template, you're going to tailor it to how your company operates. Remember the goal and develop yourself and members. We keep saying grow, 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 develop, continue. Don't use this organization as something just to put on paper and just sit by. It's really meant to help you all develop your leadership skills. Member development. So we've been talking about a 360-degree feedback program.
Yeah. So I can't remember which university talked to me about it, but we had this really, really great conversation, I think almost 2 years ago, and we're talking about, being a leadership organization, be a professional organization. One of the things you really want to be able to do is say, okay, what's the stick that says, hey, good job, you're now an effective officer. And I was like, you can kind of get there, you can kind of say what that stick is, but one of the things that I think is really, really effective is an actual yardstick of saying, okay, what's your community like in Scabbard and Blade or within whatever organization you're in, and what does their proficiency look like? And making sure that you're hitting those averages and being able to show, are you at the top of your class or are you at the bottom of the class? But really, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when I talk about where I see our members being in the next 3 years, is being able to say, I'm coming into active duty and I know where I stand. I know I'm not that good of a communicator. I know I'm not that good of an admin guy. I know, and saying, I realize that, but guess what? I know that I need to improve it, right? So being able to come in and be honest with yourself and with others that this is a weakness that I have. I know I need to get better, but I'm planning on improving. And having that self-awareness, guarantee is going to push you apart from your peers. That is, it's a huge piece where many people see that as a weakness of being self-aware like that, or being honest about where you're strong and saying when you don't know something. I think that is a core principle of what Scabbard and Blade embodies, of that honesty and that knowing of when to ask for advice and when to really strive for reaching out for help. So that's really where that's getting at, and I think you're going to see a little bit from us of how to execute something like that in the coming months.
Mentorship program. I've heard some companies actually have one of these. Like we said, they can either work or they don't. A lot of times they don't. Your mentor has to be someone you respect, someone that you can learn from. If you're not learning from them, they're really not a mentor. Moderate the applicable development content. So the same thing when we say develop your skills. There's a lot of content that Austin has made, or we are able to provide for you. There are ways that you can develop it, and that, like I said, a lot of this is all available on our site. You should really take advantage of these things. Create development packages related to a specific skill. This goes back to finding your strengths and weaknesses. Fulfill a role, really. Like, if you see where your company may have a weakness, develop something that can strengthen your company as a whole. Play a huge role for your company. As an example, I have a major who will give me something to do, and she goes, "Watch, I'm an expert." I'm like, okay, what are you doing here? She'll give it to me. I'm like, I have no idea how to do it, of course. You know, I'm new around here. And then she'll show me how to do it, because she's done one. She'll give me her example document, show me how to do it, and she goes, "Look, I'm an expert." I said, okay. She goes, "Remember these things. You want to be an expert in something, you have to see one, you have to do one, and you have to teach one." It's a way to develop any skill that you have. See one, do one, teach one. I still say that over and over in my head now. And she'll give someone another task, and she'll be like, "Well, Megan can do it. She's an expert." She has to teach one actually first, and then she'll be the expert. But she'll say that every time. Regular activities. So along the development along the development ideas line, activities should align with the 5 stars and support unique needs of the unit. You have open range, but we are a society, and we have it on core fundamentals, and we have a foundation. So if you're wondering what direction to go back to our fundamentals. Go back to our mission, our vision, our 5 stars. Really exemplify Scabbard and Blade. Professional speakers with Q&A, always a good idea. That's how you learn from stories. And they love to talk, so bring them in and let them talk your ear off and ask them questions. Joint education program. That's a good way to get involved, like with ROTC. You're both in ROTC organizations, both growing through education, or not just in ROTC, but multiple ROTC units. Somehow get on the same page. Educate each other.
Yeah, it's super interesting to think, like, learning about Army stuff, I'm always like, oh shit, like I didn't know that, you know, and it's seriously, it's just like that. Same with Navy and Air Force, you had no idea that we organized so differently, but still on the same core competencies. But when you guys talk about, you know, different unique terms, like, you know, MOS being a very basic one, we don't call it MOS, and our job codes are definitely not the same, like even just job titles. Your acquisitions are not called the same as us. So it's just interesting to see that, you know, speaking the same language, kind of like General Huber said yesterday. It is quite different, but yeah.
Communications program, that's very broad, but if you have problems within your own company, it's going to be harder to communicate elsewhere, and maybe just one person doing that communication. I always thought about doing communication drills, like out of nowhere. It's like a recall. How fast can you answer it? I mean, it's going to be important in times of like disasters or things going on, but it's just knowing that you can properly communicate when you need to. That's important. I know a lot of people just see an email and don't answer it. That's another issue. I may have a deadline, and I need to know how you all are doing. It's simple reply, even if it's a negative one, like I don't need it, goes a long way. So work on your communication within your companies and then expand it. Analysis of current events in history goes back to just pushing each other, making sure you're always on your toes. We learn from history. That's why we have history around. We have a history buff over here who just loves to talk about it, but I'm sure you've learned so much just from being generally interested in history. You do learn. You learn from past wars. That's why we study them. What to do and what not to do. How have we failed? So challenge each other, even as current events are happening now. It's, you know, president election coming up. That's very important. That's going to make our commander. So those are things to be thinking about. Challenge each other and start conversations where to just challenge each other. Analysis of current leadership thought. Book clubs, that was mentioned earlier. Cadet McGinn said that. Definitely keep each other on each other's toes. Group leadership exercises. We do a lot of GLPs, or you'll pick a peer cadet to lead. Continue to stress the importance of leading each other. Unit improvement activities. A lot of times you'll do these in your ROTC unit. Take that same kind of concept and just tweak it a little bit and use it for your company. Mentorship again. Field trip to military bases. I hear some companies actually do that in order to have more, I guess, like a brother and sisterhood. You kind of get yourself away from the environment that you're always in, and you're able to relax with each other and get to know each other. Use those trips and those games that are out there to just get more involved with each other. Major events. I'm not going to hit too hard on this. This is just a lot of ideas you can read for yourself. People have done these golf tournaments, military banquets where you have all ROTC units get together and alumni. They do these even on active duty, these joint dining events and military balls. And then your campus. Get involved in your campus. If people on your campus know what's going on, that itself is a recruitment tool. Aside from that, just having a good name for yourself. You definitely want to be reputable. We have to do that anywhere we go. Don't be that idiot. And you wear that uniform. You just like, wow, you wear a uniform, but you just did that not too long ago. Always be professional, presentable.
Yeah, I think on this slide and the last one, one thing to take away is that the more you challenge yourself on the events, that staying very close on the goals that you want to accomplish. So, when you stay just in ROTC, that's not necessarily as hard as jumping into the community. They all become a varying degree of complexity that will challenge your company to a greater extent. And maybe you can do 5 ROTC events, but you can only do 2 community events because they're so much harder and they cause a lot more work. So it's just something to think about of like what your company goals are, but also that the variability of doing different tasks is very important to. If you have too much variability, it's going to be so disorganized that your company is really not going to grow. Maybe you do a lot of events, but it's not going to be very fun to be a part of it, right? So also think about what's fun for the company to do. Don't have to be so focused on, just getting through it, or just doing a bunch of events for the kicks.
All right, can you hear me now?
We can, General Dollar.
I'll be darned. One thing working with alumni, you may have to work on their technical skills, give them a little training. Hey, look, I've got my official alumni advisor hat I have with me. What do you think of it?
I love it. That's awesome.
You are the brand. You are the brand.
I'm the brand. Kind of like you guys too young to remember the Marlboro Man.
Yeah.
Cigarette.
Yeah, I remember
that. He was the personification of the Marlboro cigarette, so I could be that for the Scabbard blade. And it turns out my wife is distantly related to the first Marlboro Man. It's a small world. I have some comments about mentoring, so maybe now that I figured this out, we could talk on that. That's a very important subject. And I think this is excellent, your program here.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're welcome to.
This is all recording, so anything you say will be for future reference as well.
It's me in a court of law, right?
Yeah, be careful. We got you now.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed yesterday. I had a family conflict. But this is on YouTube, yesterday's event. I looked at some of it, right?
Yeah,
as long as it's positive, then he said it's on you guys.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's on Tim.
That whole video will be properly edited for viewing. Right now, it's like 3 hours. It should be like an hour and a half. It'll be cut quite a bit. But we had some really good speakers, and I encourage anybody who wasn't on yesterday to definitely watch it. We'll get you that information out to the commanders and to you, General Dollar, sir.
Is mine on there? I couldn't find it. I just glanced through it. It is on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your portion is we had a little issue with the slides and the live recording, but we have a really good technician here who's going to properly edit this and put the original video in there, and it's going to be so much better to watch all the way through.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you were here in person, there were no hiccups on this.
No hiccups.
Everyone watching definitely went through the.
Yeah. Well, I like to watch mine, you know, to learn, re-watch it. That's why I want to see it. But you know, talking about mentoring, these Hangout platform, so many alumni are interested in. Every now and then they check about, could I be a mentor? But this would be the perfect avenue to do it. If the person were given kind of a topic to initially speak on, and people from over the country then could ask questions. But they'd have to be prepped ahead of time, I think, so they're prepared to think about it a little, to ask questions. Otherwise, it's dead silence, like we see so much.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. I think there's a lot of people that would be definitely interested in giving back to the cadets, and I think the cadets can engage a lot of people, but having a somewhat of a template of, hey, we'd love to hear about how you handle joint combat or how you engaged with other services. Those small talking points go a long way. Like General Huber, I mean, it's a little bit different for generals because I think they get educated to pontificate, as you like to say. But yeah, I think it's having some talking points, especially on what we're looking for. Just a little bit of a targeted area usually just goes a long way for the alumni, because they usually understand, here's something that I see that's really valuable.
Yeah, one of my commands, the senior leadership had never really interacted, like even down to battalion level. So when we had a conference, I had the deputy CG, the chief of staff, and some others. They had to take the personnel packets of the battalion commanders present, and then they had one-on-one sessions, so they'd go through the packet to talk to the officer about his or her career. They had probably never had that valuable interaction, because that gave them something to focus on. And the senior officers had more experience, like with putting a packet together for a promotion board, or how they work and so forth. That's one example of having some vehicle to get the conversation started,
Yeah, absolutely.
Do something like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things that I think we can really leverage from a national scale to do some good things from a mentorship side for the cadets, to at least have a good template to get started. We definitely could talk more about it. I think right now, I was just talking, or Megan was just writing me a note. So we have roughly 40 minutes left. So everybody knows, we have about 20 more slides that we want to get through. Depending on the discussion, we definitely want to, I mean, this is good, having these breaks and talking a little bit is really helpful to us. So we want to continue the conversation. One of the areas that I want to make sure that Megan talks through is the admin side, and a couple other points on like how to continue to develop your company. So we're going to talk to the strategic direction of the society, and where I see the organization going over the next couple of years. So for the first things first is to talk about what did I say last year, and what have we done so far. So as just a reminder, what I had said is I want to improve the communication, I want to improve the company operations, member development, long-term member engagement. Now, what you see about each one of these is that you really can't just knock it out. You'll never just improve communications 100% or improve company operations. But what we did is we delineated it into a couple sub-objectives that we thought we could accomplish that would contribute to the overall improvement of communication. Same with company operations, member development. So if you're on the email list that I had sent out for the company advisors and commanders, you got something that looked a little bit like this next slide. The review of 2015, and it has this goal scorecard where it breaks down this improved communication. So you see on the left, if you have improved communication, and then it gets broken into the objective of increased national HQ communication with members and companies, and then it gets broken down even farther into, okay, what does that mean? And so the things that I wanted to do is make sure we did an e-convention, that we put in some social media profiles for S&B, and we started to actually have groups that were engaging, and then also monthly contact emails. So we got all those things done, and I think it helped, but I think we have more work to do in those areas. And in the interest of time, because we could honestly talk about this for a very long time, I'm not sure if everybody would have the conversation, but there's a lot behind all this and the implications and the strategy behind each one of these. But if we just move on to the next slide, well, one thing I do want to say is that it's still a work in progress. These high-level top 4 goals are going to continue to get refurbished, and these ones that you see that are deferred in gray and the in progress are just rolling over to next year. I think these in progress ones I'll have knocked out by the summer, and same with number 4. I have a pretty good lead on a lot of them. But it still has a pretty significant way to go. The top goals for 2016. So I want to improve the national operations. So we have had quite a few times with issues of uniform items and membership fulfillment. Uniform items continues to persist to be an issue on an annual basis. And just so everybody understands that right now we do the distribution ourselves, and so having volunteers have to be responsible for that is quite the task. So we are having another distributor pick this up. It's actually Vanguard, the person that does all of the military uniform pieces. They're picking it up this summer. It's somewhat of a process of getting them started, but I'm pretty confident that once we have that piece done, you guys will be able to get your uniform items quite quickly and pretty much on demand from them. Well, it will be from us, but they will fulfill in a week to 2 week time period. And then the membership fulfillment, we're still going to stick with the 4 membership fulfillments on an annual basis, but there's some more discussion that I want to have with the company council later on when we talk through this. The administration, definitely want to improve our administration. Right now we're doing pretty good on actually conducting our admin stuff. What I really want to get to is there's some areas that I think can be a little bit more efficient on the cadet side and our side, and I want to start taking advantage of that over the summer, and we'll talk through some of the ideas. The national recruiting, I actually want to have a template that we can actually send to other cadets and other companies, and kind of give our pitch of why this program is effective and the value that you guys are all receiving out of it, and start increasing our national scope. Now the next big thing is really want to increase the cadet responsibilities nationally. So that's why we have the National Cadet Command coming in, and also development programs. And these development programs will be led by cadets 100%. We need to get you guys involved from a national perspective and really taking a huge buy-in to this, because as you'll see, what I see for 2019, this organization is going to be run by you. So we have 3 years. We're making steps towards it, and I think we can make it happen. But next year is going to be a big year for us to see if we can execute on a cadet national command. Now, improve company operations.